all non-party stakeholders, stakeholders from the digital sector. We have heard from the cities here in the last session, and this next session, which is focused on the industrial sector related to digital solutions. We'll hear some more insights from the panelists, our distinguished panelists. So I will not waste much time now with that, and I give the floor to Kevin for moderating this session. Kevin, you have the floor.
Ready? Okay, do you have a microphone? Okay. Hi, welcome everyone. My name is Kevin Thompson. I'm the Chief Operations Officer at Jesse. We've shown up a lot here over the last couple of days. I was thinking this morning as I was snaking through all of the lines trying to get into COP that COP is sort of like the Olympics for climate change, and I feel like maybe day one was the shot put. Yesterday was the 100-meter dash, and today is the high jump. And so, if anyone can clear the top of this bench at the end of our session, you'll get a special gold star. And in celebration of how hard everyone is working to find their way around, I just want to remind everyone we're going to be hosting a reception in this room this evening at 6 o'clock, thanks to the kind support of Verizon, our partners, and Jim Gowan, who is here in attendance. So today we're going to be talking about Green Digital Action Enablement. And so Green Digital Action, that was the session that kicked off this morning at 9 o'clock. And so this is the enablement portion of that conversation. And so we're really going to be focusing on the enabling role of digital solutions in Green Digital Action. We've got an all-star panel, as well as a couple leadership insights coming from our audience. So let me introduce everyone real quickly, and then we'll get our session started. So here to my left, we have Saizo Onoi, the ITU Director of Telecommunications Standardization Bureau. To his left, Kay McGowan, Senior Director of Policy for the Digital Impact Alliance. To my immediate right, Katja Kammerer, the Director of Public Sector Liaison for GIZ, the German Development Agency. And far to my right, our new friend Marina Madale, the Group Executive for Sustainability and Shared Value at MTN. And we're also going to be having some leadership voices coming from the audience. Ahmed Rashad Riyad from Huawei and Fernando Reno da Costa, the CEO of Unipartner. Will be offering additional perspective from the private sector. So with that, let's get started. And I'm going to start with you, Onoi-san. Help us set the agenda for this conversation. Can you give us an overview of the enabling role of Green Digital Action?
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to address these important issues. That's crucially important to ITU's work. So actually, we have seen one example for how digital technologies can enable climate actions. So one is AI. Already some discussion in the morning sessions. AI is a strong tool to make our system optimized. So that reduces significantly the power consumption. So that's one example. And data twin. This is also discussed in the opening session by the Morita-san, ANC. Yes, he talked about this mature enough, but I don't know. But data twin technologies are helping us to create some replica of the buildings and the environment. So it's very helpful for sustainability and resilience of the city designs. So, and digital agriculture supported by AI is helping us to improve the sustainability of farming technologies. Also, digital technologies are helping to reshape mobility, supporting smart mobility, traffic management, and also the connected cars, electronic vehicles and autonomous driving. So as such, digital technology can help to improve efficiency directly, and also it reduces the power consumption significantly directly. But on the other hand, in addition to that, digital technologies and digital transformation by digital technology will change our lives, our society, changes significantly. So I mean that just one good example, always commonly mentioned by video conferencing, online meetings, that actually became common to all during the COVID. It eliminates physical transportation. That reduces the power consumption significantly. So as such, directly, indirectly, digital technology will contribute to the climate actions. That's an overview from me. So as a TSB, Telecommunications and Bureau Director, I will contribute. I like to continuously contribute to the these actions through standardization. Yes.
Thank you very much, Inoi-san. I'm going to stay on this side of the stage, and Kei, would love to hear from you. And as you start, if you could share a little bit about the Digital Impact Alliance for those of us, or for those in our audience who are not familiar with the organization. And we've heard a lot already about data. We talked a lot about digital enablement, but really the bones, in addition to infrastructure that makes this all work, is data. And getting data to be interoperable is a huge challenge we all face. So we'd love to hear your comments, Kei, about unlocking data for climate action, and what are the opportunities that we have ahead of us in the role of data and sharing governance and trust frameworks.
Sure. Okay, well, is this on? This is working?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Well, first, I just want to thank Jesse, and in particular Luis and Kevin, for organizing this. I know it cannot be an easy feat to actually host your own race in the Olympics of climate change. So congratulations and thank you. Yeah. And of course, thanks to the ITU for putting this on the agenda. I think it's long overdue and very important. So it's great to see all the attention that digital technologies are getting, especially with their potential to contribute to climate action. So as Kevin mentioned, I work with the Digital Impact Alliance, which is a nonprofit platform based at the United Nations Foundation. We are funded by, thank you. We are funded by some of the world's largest public and private donors in digital development, including GIZ, of course, and the UK government, the US government, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Hewlett Foundation, Rockefeller, those sorts of organizations. And the goal is to really think about how to better leverage digital technology investments and policy and enabling environments to accelerate development, in particular in very low resource countries, right, where you still have huge gaps in connectivity writ large, and even where there is connectivity in many countries where we work, the connectivity is not particularly meaningful for really improving lives or spurring inclusive economic growth. And so as Kevin mentioned, we've focused for years and years really on the policy environment and on affordable connectivity and laying the rails, right, so to speak, for people to get access to the digital economy, whether that's through inclusive digital identity systems, inclusive payment systems. But recently, we've really started to focus on what these rails can generate, right, which is the resultant data, and what is the power that that data can bring to solving real-world problems, including climate change. And what we've learned over the last few years is that there is a tremendous amount of data that is being generated right now that could be, in theory, of great utility to people and to climate action, but it's actually locked up in silos, right? And it's unavailable to be examined or studied or understood for the insights that it could bring. And there are really good reasons for that, right? Data is very sensitive, in particular if it pertains to people and privacy. There are financial considerations as well. A lot of the data that's being generated by large commercial enterprises, they put a lot of money into that, and the data is kind of a proprietary good, right? So what we do a lot of thinking about recently is what are these governance models and trust frameworks that allow organizations to safely make their data sets accessible while having the confidence that a competitor is not going to come eat their lunch or they're not going to breach their customers' privacy and security. And so I think that that is really the opportunity that we have as we think about data, is to how do you figure out both the financial sustainability of trusted data sharing for climate action, but more importantly, what are those trust frameworks and what are the different mechanisms and platforms that can bring holders of climate relevant data together? I'll stop there.
Great, thank you, Kay. And so we've got to start around green digital action enablement. We heard some commentary about the role of standards, the role of data. As I move over here to my right, and Katya, as an implementer at GIZ, why is it important to recognize that the digital and green transitions are so closely intertwined? Perhaps we should have started with a question like this, which is why? Not just the what and the how, but the why. So I wonder if you could share a few comments with us, Katya.
With pleasure. Thank you so much for having me here on this distinguished panel. And the question of why is really at the start of all our thoughts. Why? Because digital innovations are such a powerful leverage that can actually be channeled in support of actions against climate change, and they should be used for that. Like if we look back, there were several disruptive technologies which have traditionally contributed a substantial share of greenhouse gases. But when adapted to sector-specific challenges in like energy, in urban, in transport or housing, they can be transformational in terms of reaching climate change goals. So this is really something to consider. But however, a fundamental rethinking and retooling is necessary, to my mind, because digital innovation foster a rapid development of new business models, and these new business models tend to be much more agile, more user-centered, and also responsive to people's needs. We've heard that on the previous panel, human needs, people's need in the center. So given that, digital innovations are increasingly indispensable as key enablers for economy's green transitions and should also be used for that, while the greening of digital technologies is a critical success factor for digital transformation. So all in all, supporting the economic and societal digital transformation should be not dealt separately from reaching the sustainable model, but it should be fully integrated.
Thank you for that, Katya. Marina, we always love hearing the private sector kind of grounding us in the what and how you do it. So I wonder if you could share with us, Marina, what types of approaches and techniques do you think are required for effective enablement?
So I think when it comes to digital technologies, and specifically also within the climate change environment, I think it requires collaboration and partnerships. As organizations, you tend to partner with like-minded organizations, whether Microsoft or Google and so forth. And I think we can have that scale and that impact by doing so, so it's how do you join forces with others and push it forward. But I think to reach a true level of involvement is by really involving, the youth, women, and broader society in it, so that it's not the private sector trying to find solutions together. It's around how do you bring society, governments, and everyone into that equation. As an example, in MTN Zambia, we partnered with WWF and the Zambian government to put out a Apache Panda Innovation Challenge. And we put out the challenge saying, you, the youth, and it's particularly targeted youth and women, and we said, come up with innovative, climate and sustainability solutions. And we said, and let that have a digital element to it. And we've seen that being extremely well received. The youth, they're looking at their own community, what they're seeing, and they're trying to find those solutions. We've seen, the winner of the award this year was a gentleman who looked at putting in a biomass solution and saying, how do I scale this over time? And through the partnership that we have in place, we're now going to provide a 2 years incubation support to that individual to move their idea from idea stage to larger scale. And I think this is what we need more of. A lot of companies are doing different types of challenges, and we're driving this climate entrepreneurship movement that's taking place, but we need to join forces. And ultimately, I think one of the visions and something we should consider is creating a trading platform for digital entrepreneurs, especially in climate, where we can be able to go to a certain place and say, okay, I need this type of services, or I'm kicking off a circular economy program. Who are the digital entrepreneurs in our region, and so forth. So I think that's something that we really need to collaborate on to try and find solutions. But I don't think it's not a private sector, government sector, it's an everybody together, and then especially with the youth, because we can't do this without them being involved. They are the future holders, and they're the ones that look to us to find the solutions today. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's such an important point about bringing youth in. I can share that before the session we were outside talking about our children, who are both in roughly the same age category, and how much of a contrast a format like COP is from attending a 7-year-old music concert. But I think this point about inclusivity is such an important one in enablement. Is who else are you bringing along? Yes, there's the standards and the data and answering the why questions, but the who is also really, really important. So thank you for bringing that into the conversation. Anoe-san, coming back to standards, what role do you see in standards really advancing the enablement agenda?
Yeah, actually, the international standards provides a structured framework for the global implementation. My strong belief is that the standards' role is to make everyone to use the standards, the solutions. So the wider use of the standards or solutions will make standardization value more valuable. And it also creates some solution. It makes solutions more sophisticated by feedback from the users. So it is a crucial role of the standards. So actually, the ITU has developed a series of standards already. For example, the smart energy solutions for cities, industrial park, and homes. We are also currently operating the ITU focus groups on AI and IoT for digital agriculture, as well as focus group on the disaster management, natural disaster management. So that's our whole focus group is open to all, not only for the ITU members, but this is just before the standardization, pre-standardization phase. So we need to discuss in the focus group to set in the basis of the future direction of the standardization. So it is open to all, so I welcome you to all to join those focus groups. So make a few more examples. ITU standards provide the tools to monitor our progress towards net zero emissions. ITU standards for energy efficiency defines how big data and AI can support smart energy control for telecom sites. and data centers controlled for renewable and lower carbon power sources. Our standards also support the introduction of the innovating cooling solutions for green data center. ITU standardization work is driven by collaboration and consensus decisions. So anyway, again, standardization helps dissemination, and the dissemination increases the value of standardization. Standards play a great role in climate action, as discussed in the morning sessions.
Thank you, Inoue-san. So we've had some why and some what and some who. Kay, you've actually got, and we do have when, which was the launch of the Green Digital Action Coalition, was today. Kay, you also have a really exciting initiative that I don't want to put you too far out in front, but a recognition that you're taking action and you've got something coming up that really helps highlight this point around like a joint learning network around data compatibility.
Right, very exciting. So we are really pleased this week to announce the formation of a joint learning network that is bringing together organizations that are very, very deep into the exploration of how you do govern data sharing, data trust, models that do think about how do you respect the privacy and the proprietary rights of data holders while making data more available, with organizations that, if not set up explicitly to work on climate issues, are actually collecting a lot of climate-relevant data, right? And so the idea is to bring together a handful of organizations with these different skill sets and think about what are the different models that we need to unblock some of this data sharing, right? So the idea is to have some virtual learning sessions over 2024 and come back to COP29 next year and report back. We have some great folks that are already signed up, including really innovative platforms like Place, which is working right now to generate and then steward hyperlocal geospatial data and location data in and undermapped areas, right? And they're very interesting because they have a financial model that's kind of a club goods model that enables, it's a licensing structure that enables commercial operators that want access to that location and mapping data to pay a certain rate that helps subsidize the public uses of that. And there are all sorts of amazing sort of applications with climate data. But you can think about the combination of these data sets too, right? So we have folks from MTN here and Verizon. Like, you can think about early warning systems, right? If you have weather data and information that's gleaned from mobile telephone networks. And so I think there are just countless examples, and the goal of this joint learning network is to start to really hone in on what are some of the key blockers and what are there's a lot of experimentation happening right now with data sharing models and platforms. What's working, what are the different avenues, and how can we start to think about scaling and getting more collaboration on some of these platforms rather than continuing to operate in silos. So there's an open invitation for anyone interested in joining this learning network. We'd be delighted.
Yeah, and I will go out on a limb. Our CEO, Luis, has stepped out, so I'm going to say this without having discussed with him already, but Kay convinced me over lunch to join, so Jesse's going to be a member. So we're very excited to join you on this, and thank you. Yeah, that's right, that's right. So Katya, coming back to you, as an implementing organization, what do you see as crucial for adoption of digital solutions? We've covered a lot of territory so far in this session. Adoption, not as much. So interested what your perspective is and where some of the areas that you're working.
Yeah, thank you. I think here we can bring in a valuable perspective because we are actually working as an implementing organization on behalf of the German government, but also of other actors, European Unions, many others in around 120 countries. And in our experience, the challenges in addressing climate change, they do not lie only in the measuring of the CO2 emissions, but also in the assessment. So the assessing and attributing their reduction. And here we think it needs a system-wide approach that also empowers citizens to better monitor and also trace their CO2 emissions across the entire value chain. Yeah, so that's very important. So here again, like human-centered approach. And digital innovations such as AI has been mentioned by ITU, or blockchain technologies are very powerful tools that can serve significantly to improve first the transparency, second the accountability, and third the traceability of greenhouse gas emissions. And so these technologies actually support companies to provide more accurate, more reliable, and also more standardized data on CO2. So we think this is quite an important feature. And also these innovative digital technologies like AI or blockchain can transform individual efforts of companies into a more concerted and more networked approach. So here we think efforts should go together and be more aligned, while also clearly pinpointing contributions of individual actors in an industry, for example, in a sector. And so this conversion, with the spirit of competition and carbon market-based incentives, they dovetail into a win-win situation, if you think about it this way. And I could actually expand on one example which shows this from our work to support digital and green solutions together with local ecosystem, and that's an example from Vietnam, where we have established a green tech hub together with SAP. And here, energy efficiency and the circular economy, which are two drivers in Vietnam that are crucial for the small and medium-sized enterprises, the SMEs, to reduce their environmental impact, are being addressed. And here, the idea is that the adoption of green tech will actually need considerable efforts, not only from the government, and we usually tend to support on a multi-level approach. So we work with the national governments, but also on the regional and the local level. And here, combining the government support, but also private businesses and entrepreneurs, and bringing them together and supporting the entire ecosystem that needs support. Entrepreneurs need support in Vietnam in developing quality expertise. They need funding. They need other resources. And this Green Tech Incubator, which is actually funded by the German government, by our Ministry for Economic Development, and implemented by the Digital Transformation Center in Vietnam, and that is cooperating with the closely with the National Innovation Center of the Ministry of Planning and Investment. And this provides the capacity building these early green tech startups in Vietnam really need in order to take off, in order to make their first steps. And it now aims at connecting bigger international startups with those Vietnamese companies in promoting green tech applications that have been developed locally in Vietnam. And also help them bring them, expand and bring them to the worldwide market. So we think this is quite a good example that could be also scaled up and brought to other regions and sectors.
Thank you, Katja. And so, Marina's a question for you around key ingredients, and we've already heard some really big ones: youth, women, data, standards, incubators, citizen empowerment. What are the key ingredients to make green digital action enablement a reality from your perspective at MTN?
Thank you very much for the question. And I think, like you've said, a lot of the panel members have touched on some of the big ticket items, like partnerships, like Katia was just saying that, without that collaboration and leaning on one another and creating a network or an ecosystem, it's not possible. So I'd say that's definitely first and foremost ingredient. I think the other is, especially as you're finding green digital solutions, you've got to leverage the latest technologies, from AI to blockchain and so forth. These technologies are evolving, and as you start to apply them in these different contexts, you need to also ensure that there's a responsible and ethical use of those technologies at the same time. So it's almost, ethical by design, So I think that's something to bear in mind as the technologies evolve. How do you keep it responsible and ensure that it hits the heart of what the solutions are intended to do? I think another key component is the size of the problem is so big that no one player can do it alone, but the key needs to be about scale. And to scale, it unlocks, different types of ingredients. You need financing to scale. You need collaboration to scale and so forth. So I think the goal needs to be scale by design as well, so that at the end of the day, it doesn't only benefit a very small group of people, it has the ability to, over time, reach more and more people. And I think something else that's not often spoken about is skills. When you think about, as an example, MTN, we've been doing, we recently launched the MTN Skills Academy. And when we were looking at the Skills Academy, we kind of knew we're answering the biggest problem exam question was we have high levels of unemployment on the African continent. We need to address that unemployment. But what we realized is that it's not going to help if we bring in skills that don't take the future demand into consideration. So when you look at digital technologies, the demand of African nationals to meet and have those specialized skill sets is quite high. What about green tech? What about environmental skills? That's not being taken into consideration. So how do we ensure that we develop the right skill sets? Are universities really starting to find that intersection, between digital technology and environmental solutions? And I think more needs to be done in this area of skills. And last but not least, I think Katia touched on it, which is outcomes-based. Like if we do not, have very clear outcomes of what are we trying to achieve, what's the intended impact, and then measuring along the way to say, are we meeting these goals? Then how do we know we've arrived? So that's fundamental and very key. One of the things we often apply is theory of change. I know it's often used in a social setting, but it is something that works just as equally well from an environmental perspective. You get, your inputs, outputs, outcomes. And even in the Skills Academy, we apply that lens and we said, okay, it's not about the number of people you're training only, it's about how do you go beyond that to, how does that impact household income and so forth. So now when we look at it from a climate tech perspective, and in reflecting coming into this session, a colleague asked, okay, what's the message you want to land? And for me, the heart of it was that climate action can be a catalyst for development. And that's only going to be possible if we say, yes, you may want to reach X number of green or digital entrepreneurs, but you also want to unlock X number of jobs as a result. You want to unlock industrialization as a result. You want to unlock GDP growth with time. And very interesting, Oxford did a study recently, and they said that 10.3 billion is the size of a green economy. So that takes circular economy, waste, it takes everything into consideration. Now, what portion of that is the digital, green kind of element? We don't know yet. How do we study that? Because the more we do that, especially for us in an African context, the more we do that, the more our voices will be heard, because people will see the direct link between, the green revolution and the green economy and the green industrialization. And then people are like, now you're talking. So I think it's really key that we focus, we keep our eyes on the prize and what we're trying to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you. You and everyone else on this panel has made my job as a moderator so easy. I was concerned that we had touched on so many key ingredients. I thought we got all of them, but you brought in skills and scale and outcomes-based and theory of change. I mean, these are all critical parts of effective enablement. So something unique we're trying to do here is to bring a couple more perspectives from some executives around some leadership insights for each of these areas within the Green Digital Action Coalition. And so we have two individuals. I'm going to first ask Ahmed from Huawei to join us, and if you could maybe take the microphone and participate just over to the right of Marina there. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, Kevin. I hope you can hear me clearly. I'll be a bit loud for the other noise.
That's all right.
We're going to win.
Yeah.
And Kevin, you just mentioned, I mean, we talked about the why, we talked about the when, we talked about the what, but I'm really happy to bring in the how. Right, and what comes with private sector, I mean, we're very happy to be part of this Green Digital Action, and of course, COP28 in this session. So basically, I'm going to be very brief, and I'll talk about two very concrete examples that we did projects in the biodiversity domain, right? So, I mean, we all know about different digitalization, sustainable digital transformation that we have. We all know about the cooling system in data centers that we can talk about a lot, and it's really important stuff. But I would like to bring a different angle that can show us how can technology and solution can be extremely beneficial in an angle like biodiversity. So one of the things I would mention is a project we did in Ireland, and another one is a project we did in Madagascar. So it's completely two different geographies. The one island actually is in partnership with an organization called ORCA, which is the Ocean Research and Conservation Association. And it's called the Smart Whale Sound Project. Smart Whale Sound Project is basically that ORCA's findings, and they are expert on marine life, is that what they call the human created noise in the marine, in the ocean, is extremely devastating for the species in the ocean. And when I read that, I was like, but why? And actually the answer is the long waves of sounds between the whales and dolphins and many species in the marine life is actually extremely important for their survival in terms of coordinated feeding kind of activities, mating and reproduction, also things related to warning signals for predators. And one of the main things in the southern coast of Ireland, in the sea, is that there's a very heavy shipping routes there, which create a lot of noise that masks this kind of communication. Again, with the oil and gas rigs, again, with ports. It was a very interesting problem to understand that it's a very critical thing for rich marine life. And what we did is we had different probes and kind of sensors in the ocean where we can send real-time data to ships and different authorities who can kind of coordinate this kind of planning in Ireland. And we created this Smart Whale Sounds project, and now it's actually improving so much the marine life, and we kind of factor in this kind of existing whales and dolphins spots across the ocean in real time to the human kind of planning and all the human kind of created activities, which is a very interesting one that we're working on. By the way, this was been working on for 3 years. The latest update of this system, it's called Models Art, AI development system for Huawei. We also use our cloud system for it. It has been updated in June 2023, so very recently. The next project I would like to touch upon is in Madagascar. And Madagascar, by the way, is very rich in terms of the fishing communities there. One of the biggest problems is that there's massive weather changes that happens across seasons. And for the last 15 years, there were more 30 or 35 cyclones in weather that happened, like very heavy rain, very massive waves, which actually a lot of fishermen had lost their lives through this kind of weather forecasting thing, and they're not digitally connected. Many of them didn't have enough education to actually understand the sources of weather forecasts and predictions. So there was a guy called Toki Sylvester who lost 2 of his family members as fishermen in this kind of thing, and he created an organization called Aquatic Service. We partnered with him. We created developed an AI weather forecast and prediction model. It's called Pango AI. All of this you can find over the internet. And we created this kind of system that can predict, based on satellite data for the last 10 years, the weather at least 24 hours in advance. And then we created this very simple system with aquatic service for the fishermen with color codes. This is dangerous. Probably it's better to fish this day or not that day. And actually to improve the life fatalities of the fishermen by 98%. Now it works for more than 57 villages across Madagascar. It actually have directly impacted more than 40,000 fishermen. And we expect by 2024 to directly impact more than 1 million fishermen and to go across all the Madagascar coastal, which is around 4,800 kilometers. So this kind of examples for us is extremely important because it's very concrete use of what you all mentioned, AI and machine learning and data, to have a clear, direct impact on a solution that can actually have a climate action kind of solution. What I want to say, and I know I'm aware of the time, I'll be very brief, is that if you see across these two use cases, there are two key enablers. And actually, if you see across more than 15 other use cases that we work directly with, there are always two key enablers. One is technology, and particularly AI, and the second is partnerships. And the partnerships here, we see it from a very interesting perspective, which is a solution provider and a problem owner. Someone who can actually are experts on the solution. We can tailor this kind of technological solution, but we also need a partner who is what we call a problem owner, someone who's an expert on the problem, on the global challenges, who can tell us where exactly is the missing piece, where the gap that we can tailor a solution for. So this is basically how I see this is extremely beneficial session to work with different partners, problem owners, solution providers, and we can make sure that we have this real digital action going forward. And very happy to have this session at 9 a.m. for the opening. And thank you very much, and back to you, Kevin.
Thank you, thank you. Great example. And to close out our session, I'd like to bring up one more voice, Fernando da Costa, who is the CEO and Managing Director of Unipartner, a leading Portuguese ICT firm, to give another example of real-world ICT implementation. Thank you, Fernando.
Thank you. Thank you all. Well, Unipartner is a consultant and system integrator, and because we enable the implementation of all the technology in the public and the private sector, I would like to start here by asking you to remember 4 years ago when we went with COVID and a part of the world started working from home. The technology was there, but we were forced to do it. And we changed completely. This is one of the things. The other one is a year from now. What happened a year from now in November? Do you believe that AI was capable of doing what it was doing a year ago? So my question here is, do you want to bet what AI is able to do 1 year from now? Probably no. So my point here, and as an organization that helps to address and to implement and to adopt and to accelerate, I see here as probably a resume also of the discussion is there are two major things here. One is innovation, technology innovation. The pace is so high, is accelerating so much that we need to find new use cases to address it. And to do that, it cannot be just technology. You need to join together different stakeholders that know the human needs and the sustainability needs. But you need to train them in the business perspective to understand what technology is capable of. Because even today, we have several customers from the private and public sector that don't know really what they can do with ChatGPT. Probably they think about the basic things. And they are just basic things, what an average person can see. This is one of the aspects. The other one that I would like to bring, and we went from there, in terms of the data, we call it digital assets. We have a major implementation and structure of digital assets. Data is one of them, but networks is another one. We are a member of GESI, and another member of the board also. GESI has an award on their Digital with Purpose Summit that was in Portugal this year. And the winner was a network provider, energy network provider. And what they did, they used their infrastructure to add IoT for biodiversity, to receive data for biodiversity, and to open that data to the universities and to scientists to study and to see how can they use and to understand better the ecosystem around. So there are here two things. They are using the infrastructure and accelerating the capability that the infrastructure can deliver, but also opening data for others to use. So in the end, we are part of also the Innovation Hub, the Global Innovation Hub. We have been working also in workshops with the Samba team. we work in several work groups, and in the end what we see is that we need politicians and funding partners to accelerate and impose some big transformation like we saw in the COVID. If we don't have that, we're not going to achieve what we need in the time that we need. And we need collaboration, and we are doing a lot, but we need to scale it and to involve all the stakeholders. And to finish, just two things, one example and just a remark. One of the examples that we did this year that was quite successful was a digital skilling initiative with health professionals. We trained 6,000 health professionals in Portugal. Why? First, for them to accelerate adoption, but second, to have them with us discussing new solutions, and also taking rid of some mind perspectives that they have about how can they address the service that they provide, because they can provide with AI, they can provide it remotely, so they can do several other things that you need to understand, that they need to address the human need and not the way that we're addressing so far. So the final remark is just to thank you for the opportunity, thank for the initiative, and saying that, of course, as an organization, we are also committed and on SBTI, working also and members of the European Green Digital Coalition. And so thank you all for being here. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you, Fernando. So just, we said at the outset, COP is like the climate Olympics. So we're going to do a lightning round, a minute or less, closing comment. Kay, on the spot. Do you have a microphone? Yes. Anything you'd like to share as we close out?
I mean, I could give more examples, I suppose, but I do think that, you know, I really appreciate the last two speakers' sense of urgency here. And I think, you know, I as an American find sometimes some of the inaction from my own government very frustrating. But what's exciting to see is how companies, nonprofits can actually come together and find solutions, like finding these models for trusted data sharing, to make resources more available, to come up with concrete solutions. And so I heard a lot of calls for policymakers and politicians and governments to do things, but I don't know, I've kind of learned not to hold my breath. And so I think there's a lot that we can all do together in the meanwhile that could deliver real value in this just absolute crisis.
Thank you for that, Kay. Lightning round, Noe-san. Any closing thoughts, comments?
Yeah, actually, in the morning sessions, many people pointed out the importance of standardization. That's happy to hear that. But I understand that there are many different aspects other than the standardization, so we need collaboration. So in that sense, we will host a green standardization pillar on Monday. So please join.
Very good, very good. Katya, closing comments. Fernando, you're stealing stuff.
No problem. Yeah. Yeah, so my closing comment would be that I think it's listening to you more than ever, I think it's so important to close this implementation gap, because we're at COP, it's the time of pledges, yeah, but we have to look at how to come from pledges to implementation. This is more important and urgent than ever, and I think it's good and important to learn from those examples that we've heard, and to look at how can we scale them up, how can we bring things to a scale and increase the impact.
Wonderful, thank you. Marina.
As you said, lightning round, one word jumped to mind in case you asked me for one word, right? It was limitless. I think once you're united, and I loved, Fernando, what you said about, during COVID, we had no choice but to make a plan, whether it was putting your children online to continue learning, to continue self-working. You had no choice, so we did it. you know, and I think that shows our resilience as humans, you know. So I think, imagine we approach climate action in the same manner, not only that sense of urgency, but that sense of the sky's the limit, you know, no idea is too small, you know. If we take that as a frame of mind continuously, there's absolutely no solution we cannot find as humanity. So for me, you know, I kind of started to think, what's that vision of the future? And, you know, I really believe, you know, things will change and evolve, but really the sky is the limit, at least in my mind.
Sky's the limit. What a great way to close. So thank you. If we could all thank our panelists. And again, sessions go one after the other, after the other, after the other, after the other, all day. So just a reminder, there will be a networking reception this evening at 6 o'clock here in this room, sponsored by Verizon, should you want to consult with some of our panelists and other people presenting here today. Thank you very much. Yeah.